How Poland accidentally set the stage for World War II. For Americans, World War II is the story of D-Day, the defeat of Hitler, and the rise of the U.S. as a global superpower. We picture brave GIs storming Normandy and the stars and stripes flying high. But what happened before America jumped into the fray in 1941? The 1930s were a chaotic mess in Europe, and one country, Poland, played a surprising role in kicking things off. Now, don't get me wrong, Poland didn't cause the war, and it was one of Hitler's first victims. But its bold moves, risky alliances, and stubborn stance may have pushed the world closer to the edge. This story isn't just about dusty history books. It's about how small nations can shake up the world, how economic weakness can doom big dreams, and what the U.S. can learn from it today. Think about it. America often backs smaller allies, from Ukraine to Taiwan. Poland's story is a warning about what happens when ambition outstrips reality. In this deep dive, I'll break down what Poland did, add my own take, throw in some hard-hitting economic analysis, and tie it to lessons for America. It's a long read, but it's packed with twists to keep you hooked. So, hit that subscribe button, share your thoughts in the comments, and let's dive into this historical thriller. Poland in the 1930s, a nation with big dreams. Picture Poland in 1918, freshly reborn after 123 years of being carved up by Russia, Germany, and Austria. It's like the U.S. after the Revolutionary War, proud, scrappy, but surrounded by bigger players. Poland's leaders dreamed of reviving the glory days of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, a powerhouse that once stretched from the Baltic to the Black Sea. Think of it as America's Manifest Destiny vibe, but without the economic muscle or the Atlantic Ocean to keep enemies at bay. Poland faced big challenges: a weak economy, a diverse population, Poles, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Germans, Jews, and two menacing neighbors, Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. Instead of playing it safe, Poland's leaders decided to swing for the fences. They wanted to be a major player, not a pawn. But as we'll see, that ambition led to some risky moves. Poland and Hitler, an unlikely bromance. Here's where things get juicy. In 1934, when Adolf Hitler was still consolidating power, Poland signed a non-aggression pact with Nazi Germany. Yup, you heard that right. Poland was the first country to ink a deal with Hitler 5 years before the infamous Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact between Germany and the USSR. Why would Poland cozy up to the Nazis? Simple. The Soviet Union was Poland's archenemy. Think of it like the US viewing the USSR as the ultimate threat during the Cold War. Back in 1920, Poland fought a war with Bolshevik Russia and grabbed chunks of western Ukraine and Belarus. Those territories were a point of pride but also a headache, with locals resenting Polish rule. Poland's big dream? Expand eastward to the Black Sea, becoming a regional heavyweight. And who better to help than Hitler, who also hated the Soviets? But this wasn't a love story. Poland wanted to be Germany's junior partner, not its puppet. And when Hitler started making demands, the cracks in this uneasy alliance began to show. The Munich betrayal, Poland grabs a slice. Fast forward to 1938, and Europe's on the brink. Hitler demands the Sudetenland, a German-speaking part of Czechoslovakia. Britain and France, desperate to avoid war, agree to let him have it in the Munich Agreement, a classic case of appeasement. Czechoslovakia, Poland's ally, gets thrown under the bus. So what does Poland do? Instead of standing by its neighbor, it jumps in to grab a piece of the pie. Poland issues an ultimatum and snags the Teschen region, a small but strategic area of Czechoslovakia. Imagine the US seeing a weakened Mexico and deciding to annex a border town. For Poland, this was a flex, a chance to show the world it could play with the big dogs. But it backfired. Poland alienated Czechoslovakia and other potential allies, and it signaled to Hitler that Poland was willing to get aggressive but not necessarily on Germany's terms. Why did Poland do this? My take: it was part bravado, part desperation. Poland's leaders wanted to prove they weren't a pushover. But this move painted a target on their back, making Hitler think he could bully them next. Danzig, the spark that lit the fire. Now, let's talk about Danzig, modern-day Gdansk, the city that became the flashpoint. After World War I, the Versailles Treaty made Danzig a free city under the League of Nations. It was a compromise. 95% of its people were German, but it wasn't fully part of Germany or Poland. Poland got special privileges, control over Danzig's foreign affairs, military warehouses, even its post office. But that wasn't enough for Warsaw. Poland went all in on making Danzig Polish. By 1939, the Polish population in the city had grown to about 40% through immigration, economic pressure, and cultural influence. Think of it like the U.S. encouraging Americans to move to a contested border city to stake a claim. At the same time, Poland built a rival port nearby called Gdynia, which exploded in growth. By 1938, Gdynia handled 70% of Poland's exports, stealing Danzig's thunder. Smart move, right? But it poked the bear. Hitler saw Danzig as a symbol of German pride. Plus, the Versailles Treaty had cut off Germany's access to East Prussia, its northern territory, separated by a strip of Polish land called the Polish Corridor. Hitler proposed a deal: give Danzig back to Germany and allow a corridor like a highway or railway to East Prussia. In return, he dangled the promise of supporting Poland's eastward expansion, maybe even carving up parts of the USSR. Tempting, huh? Poland said no way. Giving up Danzig would be a blow to national pride, and they didn't trust Hitler to keep his word. Instead of compromising, Poland doubled down, setting the stage for disaster. The economic angle. Why Poland felt so bold. To get why Poland acted this way, let's zoom out and look at its economy, something Americans can relate to. In the 1930s, Poland was a rural country. About 60% of its people worked in agriculture, and industry was limited to places like Silesia. Its per capita GDP was around $100, about $2,000 in today's dollars, compared to $700 in the US and $200 in Germany. Poland was like a developing nation trying to punch above its weight. But Poland was investing big. The port of Gdynia wasn't just a port. It was a symbol of independence, like the Panama Canal for the US. By 1938, Gdynia was a powerhouse, handling most of Poland's exports. This gave Poland's leaders confidence they could stand up to Germany. But there was a catch. Poland relied heavily on loans from France and Britain. It's like a startup depending on venture capital. Great until the investors pull the plug. For Americans, this is a familiar story. Think of smaller allies today, like some Eastern European nations, relying on U.S. aid. Poland's economic weakness made it vulnerable, even if its leaders didn't want to admit it. Poland's high-stakes game, caught between giants. By 1939, Poland was walking a tightrope. Germany was pushing hard for Danzig and the corridor. The Soviet Union, which Poland saw as its biggest threat, was looming in the east. Meanwhile, France and Britain promised support, but had already shown in Munich they'd sacrifice allies to appease Hitler. Poland tried to play both sides. It signed deals with France and Britain, which technically broke its agreements with Germany. Imagine the US signing a defense pact with one country, then flirting with its rival. Hitler took it as a betrayal. Plus, Poland was still holding on to territories it grabbed from the Soviets in 1920, making any alliance with Moscow a non-starter. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, the final nail. In August 1939, the world got a shock. Germany and the USSR signed a non-aggression pact, with a secret protocol splitting Eastern Europe between them. Poland was carved up, Germany got the West, the Soviets got the East. For Poland, it was game over. Why did the USSR do it? Think of it like a Cold War move. Sometimes you make deals with the devil to buy time. Stalin didn't trust Poland or the West. After Munich, he knew France and Britain wouldn't fight Hitler head-on. Supporting Poland meant war on two fronts, against Germany and maybe Japan in the East. Instead, Stalin chose to push his borders west and snag German tech. On September 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland. On September 17th, the Soviets joined in. France and Britain declared war on Germany but did little to help. Think of it as the US promising to back an ally but sending thoughts and prayers instead. Poland was crushed in weeks. Why Poland fell? Lessons for America. So what went wrong? Poland's downfall came down to a few key missteps. Playing both sides. Poland tried to juggle Germany, the USSR, and the West, alienating everyone. Danzig standoff. Refusing to budge on Danzig made war inevitable. Economic weakness. Poland's economy couldn't back its ambitions. No Soviet alliance. Deep mistrust of the USSR closed off a potential lifeline. The US supports many smaller nations today. Poland's story shows that backing allies means more than words. It takes real economic and military commitment. It's also a reminder that diplomacy needs balance. Too much bravado or too little compromise can lead to disaster. Economic deep dive. Parallels for today. World War II wasn't just tanks and planes, it was an economic slugfest. Germany's GDP in 1938 was about $400 billion in today's dollars, while Poland's was a measly $50 billion. It's like California taking on Wyoming. Poland's economy leaned on farming and coal, with Gdynia as its crown jewel. But without industrial might, it couldn't compete. Today, we see similar dynamics. Small nations rely on big powers like the US for support. Look at Ukraine or Taiwan, economically weaker but strategically vital. The US must ensure its allies have the economic tools to stand strong, or history could repeat itself. My take. Could Poland have changed history? Could Poland have played its cards differently? Maybe. If it had compromised on Danzig, war might have been delayed, but at the cost of bowing to Hitler. An alliance with the USSR was a long shot given the bad blood. My hunch? Poland should have focused inward, building its economy and military, like the US did with the New Deal in the 1930s. For America, this is a lesson in realism. Supporting democracy is noble, but it takes resources and strategy. Poland's story asks us, are we ready to back our allies with action, not just words? Conclusion: what America can learn. Poland's tale is one of ambition, miscalculation, and tragedy. It didn't start World War II, but its moves helped light the fuse. For the US, it's a reminder to support allies wisely and understand the stakes of global games. What do you think? Could Poland have avoided its fate? How should America approach its allies today? Drop your thoughts in the comments, subscribe for more deep dives, and let's keep history alive. It's the best guide for our future.